In Maplewood, Indiana, a town so small you could pass through in 10 minutes, life was predictable, quiet, and safe. That is, until the night a beloved young nurse drove away from work and was never seen alive again. Her disappearance sparked frantic searches, nationwide headlines, and a community living in fear of a predator among them. But as detectives peeled back the layers of her personal life, what they uncovered shocked everyone. This wasn't the story of a random act of violence. This was the story of betrayal, obsession, and a chilling truth that came from inside the very home she trusted most. Emily Carter was 32 years old. Born and raised in Maplewood, she embodied the best of small-town values: hardworking, compassionate, and fiercely loyal to her family and friends. As a nurse at the local clinic, Emily had touched nearly every household in town in one way or another. She was the smiling face caring for sick children, the calm voice reassuring worried families, and the neighbor who still found time to bake cookies for church fundraisers. At home, she lived with her husband Mark Carter, her high school sweetheart. Together they looked like the picture of stability, a couple everyone assumed would grow old together. But behind Emily's warm smile was a woman carrying secrets. And in September of 2019, those secrets would come to light in the most devastating way imaginable. Emily's last known movements were on the evening of September 14th. Security cameras at the clinic showed her leaving just after 9 p.m., waving to coworkers before heading into the parking lot. She got into her silver sedan and drove off into the night. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. By the next morning, alarm bells were ringing. Emily never showed up for her next shift. Something completely out of character. Her phone went unanswered, her social media accounts inactive. By noon, her family reported her missing. Within days, hundreds of volunteers gathered in Maplewood's town square to search nearby fields, forests, and roadsides. Flyers with Emily's smiling face were plastered on utility poles and shop windows. Candlelight vigils were held. The whole community united in grief and fear. 2 days later, her car was discovered on the edge of a cornfield just outside town. The driver's side door was left open. Her purse was still inside, and there were no signs of struggle. To detectives, it looked staged, almost too clean. The leading theory was a random act of violence. Perhaps she had been targeted by someone passing through, or abducted at gunpoint. But as the investigation unfolded, a different picture began to emerge. Coworkers at the clinic told investigators that Emily hadn't been herself in recent weeks. She was distracted, anxious, and occasionally tearful. A close friend finally admitted what no one else knew. Emily had been having an affair with Dr. Daniel Reeves, a well-respected physician at the clinic. Detectives quickly learned that Reeves was married with children, and the affair had grown tense. Several staff members even recalled seeing the two in heated arguments in the break room just days before Emily vanished. When questioned, Reeves admitted the affair but insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He said their last conversation ended with an agreement to take a break, painful but mutual. Still, suspicion clung to him. He had motive, proximity, and opportunity. For a moment, it seemed the case might point directly at him. Then came the breakthrough. Forensics uncovered traces of blood under the passenger seat of Emily's abandoned car. It had been hastily cleaned, but enough remained for testing. The DNA wasn't Daniel Reeves. It belonged to Mark Carter, Emily's husband. The revelation sent shockwaves through Maplewood. Mark wasn't just Emily's husband. He was a hometown hero, a man everyone admired. To think he could be involved in his wife's disappearance felt unthinkable. But the evidence was undeniable. Investigators examined Mark's alibi. He had told police he was at home the night Emily vanished, watching television. But surveillance footage from a gas station along Emily's route home painted a different story. Mark's truck trailing closely behind her silver sedan just minutes before she disappeared. Detectives confronted him with the evidence. His story began to crumble. What they uncovered next revealed the tragic truth of what had really happened that night. Mark had discovered Emily's affair weeks earlier. He kept it to himself, but the knowledge festered into rage. On the night of her disappearance, he followed her from work and confronted her. What began as a confrontation quickly escalated. Words turned into shouting, and shouting turned into violence. In a single, irreversible moment, Emily's life was taken. Panicked, Mark staged the scene, abandoning her car in the cornfield to make it look like a stranger had taken her. He buried her body just over the county line, thinking no one would ever find out. But science did not lie, and when pressed with the DNA results, Mark confessed. Emily's remains were recovered in a shallow grave weeks later. The community that once prayed for her safe return now mourned her loss, struggling to reconcile the image of the man they trusted with the horror of what he had done. In court, Mark was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife. Dr. Reeves, though disgraced by the revelation of the affair, was cleared of involvement. For Maplewood, the tragedy left a lasting scar. Emily Carter was remembered not for the scandal that surrounded her final days, but for her life of service, kindness, and compassion. Patients recalled her gentle touch. Friends recalled her laughter. Her story is a chilling reminder. Sometimes, the greatest danger isn't from a stranger lurking in the shadows, but from the person sitting across the dinner table. And in Maplewood, Indiana, the case of Emily Carter will never be forgotten.